everyone, it's Jill from the Cozy Company. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make the crisscross stitch. This is definitely an intermediate pattern, meaning that it does require prior knowledge of how to already make a original chunky knit blanket. If you're looking for a tutorial on how to make just an original chunky knit blanket, feel free to check out my YouTube channel where you can find a full video start to finish on how to create a chunky knit blanket. But to get started on the crisscross blanket, we are actually going to start it the same exact way as we would start a normal blanket. So because this is an intermediate pattern, I'm going to go ahead and assume that you already know how to make a slip knot and a foundation chain. So I'm going to go ahead and create my foundation chain by making a slip knot. And I'm going to make a 30-inch wide blanket. So for me, that usually equates to about 26, 27 loops. So I'm going to go ahead and chain on about 27. All right, I've just chained on 27. And now for row 1 of the blanket, I am just going to do the same exact thing as I would for a normal chunky knit blanket, where I pull up loops through each and every one of these top bumps of my foundation chain. So at the end of row 1 of my blanket, because I chained on 27, I want to have 27 loops. So I'm just gonna double check that I have 27 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Perfect. So I have 27 loops. Again, yours could differ depending on the size of the blanket that you are trying to achieve. But for me, 27 loops usually gets me to about 30 inches wide. And I am making one of my size small blankets, which is 30 by 50 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and have the 27, but just know that you could have less or more and it's not going to affect the blanket. So row 2 is where the actual pattern starts. So the first loop in every row, we are going to go ahead and skip. And we are working with 2 loops at a time for the crisscross pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and pull down my first loop because I'm just going to ignore it. And I'm going to focus on these 2 loops. So loop 1 and loop 2. To do the crisscross pattern, we want to also put down the very first loop of that 2 loop sequence. So this is loop 1, this is loop 2. I'm going to put down that first loop because I want to knit this second loop first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit this second loop, but I want to knit it as close to where the working yarn is coming out as possible. And I want to do that so there's not extra slack of yarn in the back. I want to pull it as close as possible and knit that second loop first. Then I'm going to take that first loop that I put down, not my first loop in the row, but my first loop of the 2 loop sequence. I'm going to take that loop, I'm going to cross it over, hence the crisscross pattern, and I'm going to knit that loop second, like that. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to find my next 2 loops, so 1 and 2. I'm going to go ahead and put down loop 1, and I'm going to knit loop 2 first. And I'm going to pull as close as I can to where the working yarn is coming out to knit it, so there's no slack in between those 2 loops. Once I knit loop 2, I'm going to find the first loop that I put down right here. I'm going to cross it over, and I'm going to knit loop 1 second. So again, I'm going to find the next 2 loops, loop 1 and loop 2. I'm going to put loop 1 down. I'm going to knit loop 2 first, pulling it as close as I can to where the working yarn is. And once I knit that, I'm going to grab loop 1 that I put down. I'm going to cross it over where I just knit, and I'm going to knit loop 1. So we're going to do that 2-row sequence for the whole row. So I'm going to put that down, knit this one first, and then find my first loop, and then knit the first loop. So I'm at the very end now. I'm going to do it one more time. And now I've completed my row. I have no more loops to do. So now I'm ready to start my 3rd row, and we're actually going to do the same exact thing, except now I'm working left to right. So again, I'm going to go ahead and put down that very first loop because we're going to skip it, and I'm going to work with my next 2 loops in the sequence. So my first loop, which is now on the left side, I'm going to also go ahead and put down, and I'm going to knit the second loop first. And again, I'm going to pull it as close as possible to where that working yarn is coming from. And then I'm going to find the first loop, not the first loop in the row, but the first loop of the 2 loop sequence. I'm going to find that, and I'm going to cross it over, and I'm going to go ahead and knit that second. So again, I have 2 loops. The first loop I'm going to put down. The second loop in the sequence I'm going to knit first, and then I'm going to find that first loop, and I'm going to go ahead and knit that second. And that's really all the crossover pattern is we work with those 2 loops at a time and knit the second loop first, cross the first loop over, and then go ahead and knit that one. Now this pattern does require a little bit extra yarn, which you may feel the tension as you're knitting your loops. And if that's the case, go ahead and feel free to make these loops a little bit bigger. I am a tight knitter myself. I usually make my loops pretty small, and I have to remind myself throughout the entirety of this that I need to make my loops slightly larger because there's so much tension in the blanket because of the crossing over. So yeah, that's all really that the pattern is. So I'm going to go ahead and do a few rows and then meet you back here so you can start to see the pattern take shape. Hey everyone, welcome back. So I just completed my last row of my blanket, and now I'm ready to close it off. And we are actually just going to close it off the same exact way as how we close off or finish off a normal blanket. So I'm going to go ahead and knit through the first 2 loops, and I'm going to make my loops slightly larger. I'm going to take my first loop and I'm going to put it over my second loop like this. And then I'm going to knit the next loop just like normal. And again, take my first loop and put it over my second loop. I'm going to repeat that 2-step process all the way down my blanket. And as you can start to see, instead of working up like we were before, we're working over to close off all these loops and give us a nice braided edge. So I'm just going to continue that two-step process all the way down. Doing the last one, and then when I'm left with one loop, I'm just going to go ahead and take this tail. This is all the yarn I have left, but if I didn't have this yarn, I would go ahead and cut it this short anyway. So I'm going to take this tail, I'm going to put it through the back side of that loop, and I'm just going to pull until that knot tights on itself. And then I'm just going to find somewhere close by along the side and just knot it a few times to know that it's nice and secure. Once I've done that, I'm just going to weave this tail through the top portion of my blanket so that way it stays hidden. After that, you can see that you've finished your crisscross blanket. And if you have any questions, concerns, comments, feel free to drop them in the comment section below. Also, feel free to drop a comment on anything else that you're interested in learning, because I would love to be able to upload more of these videos so that way we can all learn together. Thanks again for subscribing to the Cozy Company.